Welcome to Alpha Bites, where we serve up bite-sized insights to help you grow your business and your bank account. Our host, Alex Zinni, CEO of Alpha Key Digital, dives into the latest marketing trends, proven strategies, and actionable tips to scale your online presence. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, Alpha Bites delivers the keys to unlocking your success. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Zinni, your host of Alpha Bites, where I sit down with business leaders and entrepreneurs to learn more about what makes them tick and to learn from their success. Past guests include Dr. David Gutman, Bill and Ryan Strub of Strub Electric, Dr. Kara Ogren of Synergy Physical Therapy, and most recently, Christine Weber, the CEO of the Mentor Area Chamber of Commerce. We are still in our first season, so stay tuned for some more great guests. And if you have any guests you'd like to recommend, please feel free to do so. But first, this episode is brought to you by Alpha Key Digital. Located in the vibrant heart of Northeast Ohio, Alpha Key Digital delivers revenue-generating digital marketing solutions tailored to plastic surgeons, dermatologists, mental health professionals, and any private practice looking to grow their patient base. From cutting-edge SEO and social media strategies to high-performing websites and pay-per-click campaigns, our expert team is committed to driving measurable results that elevate your business. So whether you're looking to dominate your local area or to become a national brand seeking that competitive edge, our comprehensive suite of services ensures success in today's very crowded and getting even more crowded digital landscape. So to unlock your business's full potential, visit our website at alphakeydigital.com to book an introductory call with Madison Hewitt. So before we get started, I'd like to give a quick shout out today to the Euclid Area Chamber of Commerce. That's where I first met Dr. Moore, as they were recommended that we connect, and I met Dina Greer as well. And so I want to give them a quick shout out. Visit their website, euclidchamberofcommerce.com. And today's guest is Dr. Martina Moore. So to give you a little background, Dr. Martina S. Moore is a business owner, counselor, international speaker, a trainer, and a professor, just to name a few of her amazing expertise. Dr. Moore established Moore Counseling and Mediation, Inc., MCMS, over 25 years ago. Dr. Moore is also the department chair of the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program at John Carroll University. She has amazing credentials. She's an amazing person, very smart, empathetic, and just a wonderful, wonderful resource to our community. So welcome to the show, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Alex, for having me.
Oh, it's so great to see you, and I'm so glad you're here. For those people who are listening and just getting to know you, tell me a little bit about how you got started.
So I was very young, and I started out as a case manager in the field, which is like one of the lower levels in the field. I was in school, and at first I was not going to be a counselor. And one day it looked up and I said, well, that's the field I should be going in. And so I started out, I was the director of Laurelwood Hospital for over 10 years. And while I was there, I eventually started my own practice, left Laurelwood, and it's now history that I have been providing my own services ever since. But I always give kudos to those shoulders that I started upon. And that was one of the greatest things that I ever did was have an opportunity to manage that hospital and learn from people at their lowest depths in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Laurelwood is one of those very well-known institutions for recovery in our area. So, Dr. Moore, are you from the Cleveland area? Did you grow up here, or where did you grow up?
I did. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, on the east side of Cleveland. I actually graduated. I'm a graduate of Cleveland Public Schools from East High School in Cleveland. And so Cleveland is near and dear to my heart, and I've been here all of my life. Even though I travel extensively, I have been all over the world, but Cleveland is home.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Cleveland is home for me too, and also I grew up on the east side of Cleveland as well. And for those listening who don't know, there's a big difference between the east side and the west side of Cleveland. So representing the east side today is great. Take me back to those early days when you first were walking into the doors of Laurelwood. Take me back to that moment. What was that like, and what were your first impressions of being in the field?
Yeah. Well, I was the director of their detox unit and their recovery unit. And for me, it was hard at first because my father was a recovering alcoholic.
Mhm.
And so lots of trauma and memories came up to me in the very beginning. And so I had to immediately get into counseling myself to begin to work through those.
Mhm.
And so when I think about the very beginnings for me, it started at home with that, and just learning from the clients, and also having to separate my own stuff from it. And
Hmm.
so I had to do a lot of my own work in the beginning. But I just felt myself at home when I was working with those in recovery because of the household that I grew up in, and then watching my father get sober.
Wow. So yeah, you had a very personal connection with that line of work. So how long did it take before you realized that you wanted to go off on your own and start your own practice?
It took me about my first 10 years in the field. People kept telling me you should do your own, you should start your own. But I
Mm-hmm.
was comfortable with not doing that. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I
Hmm.
just felt like that was too much work. I just wanted to see the people and help the people. But then my husband, who is an entrepreneur at heart, he kept encouraging me. And so, with his encouragement, we eventually started a small practice, and it grew from there. Because there were not many minorities in the field at that time, I had a lot of people lean on me that wanted to come to me for services. And so I found myself having more work than I could handle with having a full time job at the same time.
Hmm. So it started off small, quickly grew, and then you decided to take that leap. How difficult of a decision was it for you to take that leap into full time, going with into your own practice?
Oh, it was very difficult. I didn't want to do it at first.
Mhm,
It was scary. I mean, I was getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. I had benefits, and there was some security in that. And to
mhm,
go out on your own, there's no security in that. It was a risk. And I was nervous to take that risk. So I am glad that my husband was not, but I was very afraid. And as a matter of fact, I remember being angry at him at some point, like, quit pushing me, quit pestering me. I'm not ready for this. But I finally took the leap and did it. But it was very difficult. And especially in the early years when we had our challenges, oh
mhm,
my God, I remember just looking at him thinking, this is why I didn't want to get into this.
mhm,
But eventually, as I began to really lean into it and understand that is what I was called to do, I
mhm,
accepted it with all the challenges and everything.
mhm. So what do you think gave you the most traction that once you said you accepted it and stopped resisting, how did you get the traction and then the results with your business? What were some of the things you guys were doing?
So, one of the greatest tractions that I got, I was doing some consulting work for another gentleman. He was an older Jewish gentleman who was a great colleague of mine. And because my practice was building, I would consult for other practices doing work. And so I was consulting for him doing what's called employee assistance work, EAP.
Mm,
And he kept telling me, he came to me one day and he said, I want you to buy my business.
mhm,
And I'm thinking, I can't afford to buy your business. What are you talking about? Now, he had multiple offices, all of these people working for him. And he kept telling me, one day you're going to buy my business.
mhm,
So one day he walks into my office when I'm there. I would be there maybe about 2 days a week. And he said to me, I'm ready for you to buy the business. Are you ready? He says, I want $1 million. I'm
mhm,
thinking, I don't have $1 million. Have you lost your mind?
mhm,
He said, well, I'm going to hold the note for you. And he says, and I'm going to give you 3 years to pay me back, and I'm going to stay in the business for the first year,
mhm,
and I'm going to help you to transition. And that is what really catapulted my business. He stayed in there with me for a year. He allowed me to pay him. My husband and I paid him every month till we paid him off.
mhm.
But through that, the business grew. In the first 6 months, we doubled the business.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he was just so proud of me, but he also pushed me.
Mhm,
And so from there, it gave me it helped to build my efficacy,
mhm,
that I believed in myself and what I could do, because then I didn't think I could build.
mhm,
But he also helped me to see that there were people who understood as a minority that maybe I needed someone else to help me in those doors.
mhm.
And he helped me in those doors, and he helped me to understand that even though he was helping me, that I can go beyond what he did.
Wow.
And I tell that story often because if it was not for him, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a common theme I'm sensing here is that you have people who believe in you and help push you to get into that next level. How do
Yeah.
you, for an entrepreneur or somebody who's just getting into, because there's obviously a great need for mental health services and it's only increasing. And I
Mhm,
do want to touch back upon the EAP here shortly.
mhm.
But what would you tell somebody who's interested in starting their own, practice for mental health services? who's thinking about it, what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Yeah, I would tell them to make sure that they get a great mentor who has already done it and that they really listen. They really take the steps and advice. And that because as counselors, we think with our heart.
Mhm.
We don't have that business mind. And so in the beginning, I gave away a lot. I gave away services. My husband left. I bartered with clients, who couldn't pay. And so there were days that I struggled that I did not have to struggle if I would have listened.
Mhm.
And so it's important to get people around you who have already done this and not necessarily just another counselor, but business people that
Mhm.
understand business, that understand how to work with the insurance companies, how to negotiate with the insurance companies, how to hire the right people to work alongside you, how to
Mhm.
have the policies in place. Because in the beginning, I had people who worked for me who came in the business and they didn't do things right. And so they would steal business from me and they would compete with business from me. So making sure that you had all the right attorneys in place, the policies in place, and that you run your business as a business
Mhm.
and not just as a counseling center.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds, I mean, striking that balance between because you get into counseling because you want to help people and you want to change lives. But then the
Mhm.
very practical matters of business, the dollars and cents, the contracts, the employees, the programs, the systems, that's so important and it's so hard to do it all yourself. So yeah,
Absolutely.
finding that mentor is so key. And it sounds like you put yourself out there and then attracted the right people, like that gentleman who really believed in you and he saw something in you that really spoke to him. And the fact that you guys doubled your business in 6 months is incredible. What were you guys doing that doubled the business? Was there any strategies or anything you did that helped?
Yeah, there were some great strategies. One of the things that I did was I became a small business enterprise, a female business enterprise, and a minority business enterprise with the city of Cleveland, with the state of Ohio, which gave me a great advantage. And so, what that did was there were contracts where I may not have been the prime on the contract, but they had to sub out a portion of the work
Mhm.
to a small business enterprise or to a female or minority business enterprise. And that's what got me in the door. And so I began to learn. And then from that, I began to develop the relationships where then I became the prime on contracts. And that's what really helped me to get into the door was learning that edge and going after these contracts. And
Mhm.
before that, I didn't understand the advantage. I didn't even know what those levels were. And it just so happens that I was at a chamber meeting because I started attending chamber meetings. And I was at a chamber meeting for Euclid, and someone asked me, was I a female business enterprise? And I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
And so she showed me what that was, and I started applying. And then from there, I began to learn was that was the best way to begin to build my business.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, you're very humble, but I'll say that, your curiosity and your tenacity and your ability to learn and grow is really what makes a great entrepreneur. And chambers of commerce, no matter who I talk to, anybody, many different types of businesses, they grow so much through chambers of commerce. It's a great, great way to network and meet people. And relationships is something that you'd mentioned. How do you foster relationships? How do you grow your business relationships? What advice would you give to someone to do that?
Yeah, I intentionally stay involved in professional organizations. I currently am in about four different um, professional organizations that really help me to network. And it's not about going to pass out a business card.
Mhm.
It's about really building intentional relationships, but looking at ways that we can co-help each other. And so I look for intentional relationships where I can feed into them and their business or whatever their goal is, and vice versa. And sometimes it's just about me feeding into them
Mhm.
and them not necessarily feeding into me. And that's okay because it helps me to understand the importance of giving back.
Mhm.
And so I attend meetings, I stay involved in organizations and networking. I stay involved. I do a lot of presenting at professional workshops and trainings all over the world, actually, and all over the country. And so I do public speaking engagements, which gets me in front of people, gets me with relationships, And I also personally mentor leaders.
Hmm.
So most recently, beyond more counseling and mediation services over the last 5 years, I developed Dr. Moore and Associates.
Hmm.
And the focus of that is helping leaders who are looking at becoming entrepreneurs or who are leaders in organizations or leaders who are struggling to find a counselor that can understand where they are. And so I work with business owners, business leaders, and professionals on a higher level to begin to help them to understand what it is they need to position themselves to really thrive in what they're looking to do as entrepreneurs or leaders.
Wow. And that is such an underserved population that people don't realize is extremely successful, whether they're surgeons or business executives or, people that are very successful. It's often lonely and they have a difficult time being able to reach out for help because their expectations are so high on those people.
Absolutely. I work with a lot of C-suite leaders.
Hmm.
The majority of my clients are those leaders, and
Hmm.
they need a safe place where they can come. They need a place of someone else that can understand where they are. And oftentimes they need someone that can challenge them in an appropriate way.
Hmm.
And so I have found that to be a niche, and it's only because of the hard knocks that I had of being a leader and an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that sounds incredible. So also, just to kind of pivot a little bit, you're also an academic and a professor. So tell me a little bit about how you got into academia.
So I am also an alum of John Carroll University. I did my graduate there in counseling, and I always wanted to go back and teach. And I was always in the field teaching, doing professional workshops and trainings. And people would ask me, "Have you ever thought about being a university instructor?" And I said, "Well, one day when I retire, maybe I'll do that." Well, I had decided to go back and get my PhD because I found myself very engaged in research.
Hmm.
One of the things that I've always been involved in is the research in my field and what the research says about best practices. And so I decided I was going to go back and get my PhD. And so I ended up getting my PhD in counselor education and supervision, which it puts you on the track to be a college professor and to be an educator and a researcher in the field. And I just found myself loving it. And so I had to do an internship in teaching. And so I went back to John Carroll and immediately they hired me as an adjunct and I was their doc intern. And then they hired me full time to start teaching for them. And then from there, it just went from there that they asked me to be chair, and I started working as a chair. This is my second year of chair of the department, and I truly, truly enjoy teaching. So much that I've expanded it where we are that I do international teaching now. And each year I go to Vietnam. I take students from John Carroll to Vietnam with me, and they complete their multicultural course there and learn alongside Vietnamese students. And I'm also an adjunct professor at Fulbright University in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Wow, that is incredible. How do you find the time? You must be so organized.
Question. That's a great question. I do sleep. As a matter of fact, Alex, if you were to call me at 8:30, I would be snoring like a baby. And I'm one of those very early people. I'm up about 4 a.m. in the morning,
Wow.
but by about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm gone. But I really have learned the balance with my work. I have a great team that works alongside me. I am great at delegating. I am not one who micromanages. I'm great with taking my hands off things. And
Mhm.
I understand the seasons in my life. So right now, the season in my life is to work with leaders
Mhm.
and to work in the higher ed area.
Mhm.
And so I understand that that's my season now. And
Mhm.
so with everything that I've done, I try to stay in my lane when it's that season,
Mhm.
and I do my best in that lane when it's my season.
That's incredible. Having that perspective is it's very inspiring. I do want to go back to the research bit though.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
what topics or what research is speaking to you nowadays? Like what are you really focused on?
So I have two areas of focus for research that I really focus on. The first one is the lack of access and the lack of engagement with minorities in mental health treatment. Historically, the research has shown is that minorities, and not just African Americans, but Asian Americans, Latino and Hispanic, engage in behavioral health treatment at the lowest numbers. And so we see that minorities struggle often with mental health and they don't engage in treatment at higher levels. And so I've done an extensive amount of research and looking at best practices and ways to engage them more in treatment to decrease the levels of mental health that is not properly treated.
Mm.
And then my other area of focus is I work with families and couples doing family and couples counseling. And so I do lots of work with couples and families that, especially couples that have high conflict. And so those couples that are looking to get divorced, those couples who have had trust issues or breaches in trust in their coupleship, I work with them in working to either to keep the marriage, keep the relationship, or to end it. And it really is up to them to make the decisions. And so I get those couples that come in that are yelling at each other, that are angry, that you can barely get a word in. And so I sit in that conflict with them and work with them for their next steps in their relationship.
Wow. So what does the research suggest is a good solution for a couple who is just in a bad place? Is there, I know there's no one size fits all, but are there some principles that you generally see?
Yeah. So I'm a Gestalt trained family counselor. And one of the things that we teach couples in Gestalt is really looking at the entire system and how the system has their own dance and the way that they do their business, how each person of the system has ownership in where the system is. And what I mean by that is, and I'll give you an example, I may have a couple where one of the members of the coupleship may have had an affair.
Mhm.
And so, what I help couples with understanding that even though one party in the couple had the affair and it's not the other person's fault, but each person within the system has a piece in the way that the system has functioned around it or how they got to where they are as a system. And
Mhm.
so we really believe in looking at the whole and not just the parts,
Mhm.
and how the whole does their business together, how they communicate, how they don't communicate, how they deal with conflict, how they manage conflict, how they raise their children, all of those as a whole and really an organic way of looking at the couple.
Mhm.
And many times couples can't get with it. They're angry at first because they want to come in and blame each other. Well, we help them with working on looking at self and looking at the whole.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds like definitely very intense work.
it
And
is.
yeah. I will also want to go to your second point of research, which was about, minorities and not seeking out mental health. Now, do you think that's due to a stigma? Is it due to a lack of ability to engage, or what are some of the issues there that can be resolved?
Yeah, our research has shown that there are multiple things. The stigma is the number one reason.
Hmm.
There is a huge stigma in minority populations about behavioral health treatment, and it still lies. And much of the stigma actually came within the family system. And then the other piece is the religious piece.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, minorities will rely on their pastor or their church or their community, and they keep a very close knit, closed system rather than accessing the medical field or the mental health professionals. And so, what we've had to do is come inside the system and teach them that the behavioral health network is there to help you, not to harm you, not to put you down, and not to just label you. Because there was a time in history where minorities were labeled when they sought treatment.
Hmm.
But now we have more minorities in treatment that are, I should say, that are providing treatment. We know more about the evidence of what it takes to connect with minorities. And so I tell people now that when you're looking for someone, when you're looking to engage in treatment and you're a minority, if you want someone that looks like you may not necessarily get that person, but they
Hmm.
don't have to look like you. You
Hmm.
want some that understands and that wants to understand what you're dealing with and be sensitive to your values and what you hold.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you've seen tremendous change in the field. I feel like, and this is the case in a lot of industries right now, and the culture in general, is we're going through a period of just rapid change. What would you say though, if you look at from when you were your early days and when you were in, university and then being at Laurelwood and then, your whole journey here, where have you seen the mental health space change? How much change have you experienced? And what's one thing that you can really pinpoint and say, this was a major change from when you started to where we are now?
Yeah, the most drastic change is what we're doing right now, technology.
Hmm.
Technology has completely evolved our field. And I need to say, at first, I was one of those old school people who
Hmm.
didn't want to embrace it. I remember when clients would come and ask for a virtual appointment, I wouldn't do it. I didn't even want to think about it.
Hmm.
Now, 80% of the work that I do is virtual.
Hmm.
The other piece is how it has helped us with engaging with clients actually completing treatment at higher rates. And we also see how the technology has expanded where more people can access treatment because there were barriers. I had clients who couldn't come in because they didn't have daycare, they didn't have someone that could see keep their children. They may not have had transportation. Well,
Hmm.
technology has helped us to overcome those barriers. Things like AI has progressed in so many ways with documentation and has helped us with documentation. I mean, I use AI now even in my teaching. I use it when I'm working with my students, and I'm constantly evolving in the way and seeing the benefits. Now, to some point, it's a little scary. I need to be honest,
Hmm.
because we still need the human aspect. And when I'm teaching my students and we're talking about technology, we never want to lose the human aspect, but we also want to embrace the technology because it just allows us to do so much more that we were not able to do when
Hmm.
I first entered this field almost 30 years ago.
So with that in mind, and I know nobody has a crystal ball,
Mhm.
but where do you see, the services that you provide and the interwovenness with technology? Where do you see things 10, 20 years from now?
So yesterday, I had a company reach out to me at John Carroll for a demonstration. And the demonstration of this technology that they had will allow me in my classroom when I'm teaching students on techniques. So right now, techniques is the class where students practice doing counseling. And so we have them matched up with someone and they role play and then I give them feedback.
Mhm.
They now have technology where they can get on the screen and there will be a client on the screen with them that they will do a counseling session with. And then afterwards, it will critique them on the entire session.
Wow.
And based on the theoretical orientation that I assign to it. So if I say I want you to do cognitive behavioral therapy, it
Mhm.
will give them that. I may say, I want you to work with a client that's depressed on cognitive behavioral therapy and help that client with setting some goals into the next step. And it does exactly that. And I sat there and I was overwhelmed when I saw this technology. And actually, I got a little afraid because I
Mhm.
started thinking, you won't need me soon. That entire computer, that entire AI can do this. Now,
Wow.
I don't believe that. I do believe that we still need the human connection and the human touch.
Mhm.
But I thought about how in the classroom, this can help me, it can help my students, and it can really help me to fine tune even the feedback that I'm giving to my students.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, the avatars that they're able to create, the interactions, if you program that AI to be able to analyze it and give scores, there's so many applications for it. But in the future, do you ever envision a full AI counselor, or do you always think you'll need that human to human interaction?
I wish you didn't ask me that.
I know that's a tough question, right? Oh.
I do think that there will be AI counseling.
Mhm.
And I think there will be people who still want the human touch.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do. When I saw that yesterday, I said, this is gonna happen.
Mhm.
And there will be people, just like I get people who say to me, I don't want a virtual session. I want to come sit on your couch. There will still always be those people,
Mhm.
but I do see AI being able to do this at some point.
Yeah, and maybe it's just, uh, it's not a full course of treatment, but
Mhm,
intake sessions,
mhm,
diagnostic, There's probably so many different ways it could incorporate, but human that human heart, because there is a part I would think there's a part in counseling and treatment that's almost, for lack of a better term, a spiritual, emotional, that I don't think the AI is going to be able to replicate. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. And that's that human touch that I'm saying, that that connection, even though it can emulate an empathetic word, can it really put the emotion with
Mhm,
the empathy?
mhm,
And that's the part that's missing.
mhm.
You're still dealing with something that's robotic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I
Yeah.
do want to switch gears a little bit though, and touch on something you mentioned earlier, which was about the EAP. Can
Mhm.
you tell people what EAP is?
Yeah. It's an employee assistance program. And what an employee assistance program is it is a benefit of the employees' benefits within their company. So how it works is the company actually hires a behavioral health practitioner or a practice that offers EAP, and we provide so many counseling sessions to their employees at no cost
Mm,
to the employees. And it's a way that employees can do things like deal with stress, marital issues, family issues, financial issues, depression, grief, you name it. And it's all confidential, which
mm,
is the big key. Because employees get worried when the employer says, we have this benefit for you, that's the EAP, where you can go in and see a counselor. The first thing they think is, my employer is going to know everything that I talk about.
mhm,
And that's far from the truth. As a matter of fact, we are held to confidentiality in HIPAA laws. So we are not allowed to disclose to your employer that you came, that you showed up, that you ever engaged in treatment with us or anyone else. And so the great thing about it is I will have people that come to us and they may be struggling with their employer. They may be struggling with if they really want to stay in that position.
mhm,
They may have issues with things like depression or anxiety or drug and alcohol issues or family issues. And so they receive so many sessions at no cost. And we really call it short-term counseling. It is more of what we call solution focused counseling, where we help people to come up with a solution and to work through whatever the problem is. Now, sometimes people need a little longer term therapy. And if so, we either refer them within their insurance or we may even continue to see them within their insurance. But it really is a great benefit that
mhm,
companies offer. And many companies offer it now because companies are more aware that
mm,
if you address an employee's behavioral health issue, that you get better retention rates,
mhm,
you get employees who are more stable, they are better at showing up for work. It improves them showing up for work, showing up on time,
mm.
having better satisfaction with the work that they do. And so employers recognize that it's important to provide this service to help employees. We all deal with something every day,
Mhm.
whether it be with our family, whether it be with our employer. And employers understand that the best way to be able to help is to provide this service at no cost to the employee.
And that helps kind of remove that stigma too. And a lot of employers, especially over the years, we look at, people taking time off for their mental health or whatever was seen as a negative. Is this something that you're seeing just large corporations and organizations do, or do small businesses have a chance for EAP as well?
Yes, our company, More Counseling and Mediation Services, actually contracts with small businesses and large businesses. We have businesses as small as 5 or 10 employees that we
Oh,
provide it to, and then our largest business has over 10,000 employees.
mhm,
And so we can tailor it toward any business. Along with the counseling, we also provide things like trainings for their leadership or for their employees. We provide other things like webinars and massage therapy and you name it. And so the companies can actually tailor their package with us
mhm,
to whatever best fits their organization.
mhm. So, one of the things that I'm curious about is for a business owner or an employer, what's a good way that they can help facilitate a positive mental health environment? Because we've all heard of those toxic work environments. You
Mhm.
know, What are some things employers can do to help facilitate, a positive work environment for the mental health of their employees?
Yeah, exactly what I've been talking about. Engaging in an employee assistance program, letting employees know we value your behavioral health. We value you getting help. We don't stigmatize it. As a matter of fact, so much that we're going to pay for it for you and we encourage you to use it. One of
Mhm.
the things we do as the employee assistance program is once an employer contracts with us, we actually go in and we meet with all the employees and we do an overview of what the services are. And we talk to them about it and we provide ways that they can engage in it. One of the things that I miss saying is that the benefits are also for their dependent family members. And
Hmm.
so any of their family members that are also on their insurance plan are also eligible. And so it helps for their spouses or for their partner or for their children to be able to also access the services because the employer is saying, we understand that something may be going on at home where your spouse needs some help or that your children need some help. And so by them doing that, it is setting it up to let them know that this is important to us and we value it. And we understand that sometimes you need just a little help in this area.
Hmm. That's incredibly important, that the employee feels supported by that employer because as the stigma has been reduced over the years, we all struggle in certain ways, and it's no longer weak to admit that
Mhm.
one is struggling. What is a proactive way, other than the EAP, fostering that environment? What's a proactive other measure that an employer could take to ensure that either they themselves, like I know you work with a lot of CEOs and leadership, they themselves are mentally, taken care of and that they can then transfer that to their employees.
Yeah, all of the leaders that I work with, I always encourage them. And one of the things we agree upon is that they will seek counseling themselves.
Mhm.
And so I either provide the counseling for them or I refer them to someone else. But it's important as a leader that we remain in counseling. And what I encourage them to do, if nothing else, to go and do your behavioral health checkup.
Mm.
And so a behavioral health checkup is just like every year when you go to your doctor and you do your checkup.
Mhm.
And you do the same thing with the counselor that you go and sit down and you do an assessment to determine if something else is needed.
Mhm.
And so when I get leaders that come in, sometimes we'll identify your stress is very high now. You've got a lot going on at home now. And so we set up a plan for them to begin to engage in some behavioral health treatment. The
Mhm.
other thing that's very helpful is making sure that your employees have time off and that they have concentrated time off
Mhm.
and that they're taking things like their PTO. You're finding ways that they can expand that PTO in other areas and having behavioral health days and mental health days. And the other thing that you're doing is making sure that if someone is showing signs of maybe needing some time off, that you're really encouraging them to take that time off,
Mhm.
not working after hours, not answering emails after hours. And one of the things that I had to push myself to start doing because I'm an early riser. And so I will send my employees an email at 4 a.m. in the morning. And one of the things I had to tell them early on is I don't expect you to respond to me. And so giving your employees that permission that if I am the one that's sending you an email at 4 a.m., you don't have to respond to me. But
Mhm.
the other thing is not to send them emails on a weekend or
Mhm.
on their vacation, allowing them to have that time where they don't feel like they have to check in. Those are the ways that we really allow them to have that space where they can decompress and they can take care of themselves. It is just so valuable to do that and to place an emphasis on that so that employees know that you value it and you value them doing that and that you are not going to not respect their boundaries around their time off and really taking care of themselves.
That is incredibly, I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that advice because we all feel a little bit too plugged in at times.
Oh,
And
we do.
it's really important to not set that expectation that you're on your vacation and the boss sends you an email that needs to be answered right then
Mhm.
and there because we just feel, I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed by the communication. Um,
Absolutely. They
so I
do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I do have one last question,
Mhm.
but before I ask it, Dr. Moore, where is a good place where people can find out more about you, website, and how can they get a hold of you for the executive leadership or the EAP or
Yeah.
to learn more?
Yeah. For the EAP, they can check us out at www.morecounseling.com.
Mhm.
If you're an executive leader or you would like to talk to me about leadership, maybe some trainings, maybe some consulting or counseling, you can reach me at 216-770-4555.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure that that's in the show notes too, so people,
Mhm.
when they can easily get in touch with you. This last question, it's just a fun personal question. I do like to ask it from time to time, but it comes down to just music. I'm a big musician and a big fan. What is your favorite concert, the best concert you've ever been to? What comes to mind?
My favorite artist, and I go all over the world seeing him, is Michael Bublé.
Oh,
I
nice.
love, love, love Michael Bublé. He gives the best concert. He's so engaging. I just love his music. I love his group. I love his band. It is just awesome. And so I have gone all over the world, actually. I'm going to see Michael Bublé in his shows.
Oh, that's so cool. That's a
Yeah.
great choice. Michael Bublé just makes you feel better when you listen to him.
It's that happy music, right?
Happy music.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Moore. We've been talking with Dr. Martina Moore, and thank you so much for your time and the great work that you're doing, the research, shaping of future leaders and current leaders. And again, just can't express enough gratitude and thanks for being on the show.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much, Alex, for having me.
Of course. Talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Alpha Bites. If you found today's insights valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your network. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit us at alphakeydigital.com/alphabytes. Remember, the keys to your digital success are just a bite away. See you next time.